and also to the Treaty Council. With that, friends and relatives, Victor Douville is a highly accomplished and dedicated educator with a profound commitment to preserving and promoting Lakota history and culture. Graduating as valedictorian from St. Francis Mission in St. Francis, South Dakota in 1961. He continued his education in Regis College in Denver, Colorado, majoring in liberal arts. Victor's educational journey also led him to the United States Army, where he graduated from United States Military Intelligence School in Fort Holabird, Maryland in 1964. Serving in the Army until 1966 with active reserve status until 1970. He earned advanced credit hours in military science in 1977. Victor's dedication to education extended beyond traditional classrooms as he attended the Indian Management Institute at Idaho State University, earning credits in community development and tribal government. Throughout the years, he has held various positions, including education coordinator for the Rosebud Sioux Tribe's Community Action Program and teaching roles at St. Francis Mission and Sinte, Gleska University. Victor played a pivotal role in developing the Lakota Studies program at Sinte Gleska University, creating associate and bachelor's degree programs, as well as a master's program in the Lakota history and culture. His contributions to Lakota education and culture go beyond the classroom, as evidenced by his involvement in numerous committees, museums, and cultural resource management projects. Victor's extensive publications, including Lakota language textbooks, monographs on the Lakota history, showcase his dedication to preserving and sharing the rich cultural heritage of the Lakota people. In addition to his academic achievements, Victor Douville has actively participated in legislative and resolution drafting for the Rosebud Sioux Tribe. His memberships in professional organizations and numerous awards and honors, such as the 25-year Service Award from Sinte Gleska University, highlight his significant impact and leadership in the field of Lakota education and cultural preservation. Let's give a warm welcome to Victor Douville.
Hiki chante washten pechus papilo. My Indian name is, Lakota name is Igmuakute, shooting cat, leader of the Wacheumpa band that I belong to. And I've been teaching at the university for, when I go back, I'll begin the 52nd year in teaching that. For a while, I was retired for about maybe a couple of years as Professor Emeritus of Cultural Studies. But they brought me back in because we needed to uplift the program as much as we can. I'd like to be remembered as a person who really adhered to our traditional culture, as opposed to going the other way in the scientific approach to begin to deal with some of the important, significant events in our history. So I've been battling with trying to get that oral knowledge in competition or above the science knowledge. And I've done that in 1984. When I switched to the oral tradition, I began to realize that that was more important and stronger. Just to give you a good idea of how oral tradition is powerful, 1980 is when I start switching to oral tradition, because the translations of some of the words that they were bringing over in history were not that well defined. So we began to look at the oral tradition as far as stellar knowledge, in which our people were wondering where that's taken us. And part of what we tried to explain as the science people were looking at the constellation, and especially the 12, the constellation on the ecliptic. And they had this idea of the wobble of the Earth every 72 years. And I found out people knew more about that than the science people were looking at. And we proved it by showing them that the position of the stars had changed every 72 years. And that one day this polar star, which is the heart of the Thunderbird, is going to stand upright. And that happened in 2012, when the end cycle ended, when the Earth's solar system revolved around the Milky Way and came back to its position after 250,000 years. And all the Aboriginal cycles of the calendars came to an end. But trying to explain to our people, when we was looking at the motion of the stars, we began to realize that the elders in their winter counts, if you go back in the winter counts, every 72 years, a significant climate change evolved. That was what drove our people out of Minnesota. The tremendous climate change that brought, the pine trees all the way from Canada, almost 100 miles south at the half of Minnesota, and drove everything beyond that, including the buffalo. So it's kind of hard to look at those facts and see if we had oral traditional relation to that. And we did, because of the winter counts. Winter counts are not historic events. They are a biography of a Tioshpai or an Oshpai. It's designed to determine your age, so you count back the events to determine your age. So I've been involved in that, looking at winter counts and looking at every 72 years something happens in our culture. The wobble itself, when it occurs, it has a 7-year cycle, and then the 7 more years impact. So 14 years of impacts will happen when that occurs. Also, in astronomy, comets will also determine the predictions of how our world's going to change in that. So that's what I use, oral tradition. And then we also struggled because we were trying to support the Yellow Thunder Camp, who brought the United States to court when they were evicted from their lease after 1 year. So they went to court, and they battled over to win our people in the Black Hills. The non-Indians used Don Robinson's idea that we migrated out of the Black Hills in 1776, whereas our elders said it's older, and they said, prove it. So eventually, after looking at a stellar knowledge of the 72 years wobble, we found, the ethnoastronomers told us that every 70 years when this occurs, then you had to look at the position of the constellation in the sky, primarily the spring constellations, and that's Tshasha and Ipuzie. When that appears with the sun, when it crosses into the sun, then it's springtime. So you just take how many degrees of space that constellation is. In this particular, it was 50 years, or rather 50 degrees in space, times 72 years, and you get up to 3,600 years. So we've been in the Black Hills 3,600 years ago, and it matches the time when the white buffalo calf mating came. It's signaling a movement to the east, to North Carolina, where the 7 council fires were started. So those are what we used in traditional knowledge in determining our astronomy. And I was really grateful because my grandfather, Shooting Cat, was a person skilled in astronomy. And eventually that passed on to my uncle. And my uncle passed on to me. We used my uncle William Redbird's interpretation of the stellar knowledge, and the book was based on that we developed. So in a way, I'm kind of grateful learning all that oral tradition, which is sitting there waiting. And eventually, when I was able to go back and recall those with my grandparents and other elders of that time, then we're on the right track in that. So eventually, in 1984, the book was published, Lakota Stellar Knowledge. And we invited Ron Goodman, who is a Jewish person, and he had PhD in science, in English, and he was able to, as we fed him information, develop the book. None of us wanted to write it. Because of the threat of conservative people that said if we publish it, would expose it, and then people would extort it and all that. So that's kind of dangerous. So we kind of shied away from that, and that book was a tremendous success in itself, and we use it and upgrading it every so often. So that's what I'll be talking about later on this afternoon. What I have here projected in the wall is what is sacred above is sacred below. That idea that we're really close to spiritual world makes us strong, and we've kind of lost that as time went. As we're enclosed by the coming of the non-Indian, shutting off our culture, and calling our ceremonies devil worship. So we battled that, we struggled in that, whereas some people still went through these ceremonies that they went to the Black Hills when the vernal equinox occurred. Then our people loaded the pipe, smoked it, and eventually waited for 30 days later, the next cycle of the sun entering the Pleiades constellation, or the Wichita Shakuni constellation. When that occurred, we went to Blackout Peak to the welcome back all thunders and peace. And then we waited for 30 days when the sun entered the next area, which is the Hochoka, Preshla area, where it's the center of this, the group of stars that surround in the sky, the red limestone on Earth that where the Black Hill sits on. This is the red racetrack. In the center of that was this Hochoka or Preshla. So our people entered there to do the welcome back all life and peace. And then the fourth and last ceremony as a tribal activity, when the sun entered the Gemini or Matotipila, it was summer solstice and the sun dance. So those are the things that we've been going through. We look above and see what's up there, and we must do the same thing on Earth. So what you see there is a projection of what happens when certain things happen. So all these constellations or stars in the sky are aligned to the ground or the surface systems that we have. And that's how we regard the Black Hills as most sacred to us. We brought the knowledge to Congress in 1984 when they were determining DACA 74A and B. And when we rejected that, the congressmen and the other senators began to wonder why we rejected the money part of it. We told them all the money in the world could not compensate for our loss of that. And so we put together a program of the star knowledge, took it to Congress and showed them why. So some came away with the feeling that they understood why we didn't want to give up the Black Hills. And we still haven't. It's still on the table, including Rapid City here. So that is what's probably discussed as a new bill is coming in. And then we're trying to use traditional knowledge to fight all that's going on. And that makes our progress down here a little tougher, and it's something that we can develop even better as time goes. So again, with this idea of what is sacred above, sacred below, we're beginning to have all the tribes participate in that. And when I look at all the sun dances that are occurring, it's the revival and other ceremonies in that. What you see up there as the stars match the ground, the earth, as our people go to pray at those sites, it makes us stronger. It makes us respect Ujimaka. And that's another topic that I'll be discussing with regard to how that originated. And this conference, the Wilderness Foundation, is an exact idea of how we respect Maka. And we have creation stories that are based on that. And we are led to believe that once we respect that, then we're synchronized with what was taught about that a long time ago. So this idea that we're trying to promote, is something that we need because of the climate change. The reason why the star knowledge came into being was because we were destroying the earth back then, hunting animals to extinction. And eventually, Maka sent the Thunderbird to unleash the cleansing of the earth. So we had all these floods that occurred, and our people began to be tired of that. So our medicine men leaders and other leaders got together, had a lot of these meetings with the spiritual powers. Eventually they realized that they're destroying the earth in some way, in some fashion. And the only way to stop it is to begin to respect what's above. So that is why the star knowledge was done. Once that star knowledge was practiced, then the flooding stopped. So again, we're back to that where the earth is being really worked to death. And that these climate change that occur are a reality, and it's punishing our people and us along with it here. So that's important that, to the non-Indians, that they respect what they call nature. Nature is Maka, but they don't view the nature as spiritual because they're always thinking about the idea of a separation of church and state. Whereas our culture usually brings them together and more respective in how they operate together. The world conflict is really in the East. It's between the Jewish people and the Arabs. They believe strongly in their religions, and they clash over territories over that. So, and we're not helping much the colonial powers that are contributing to a lot of those things that are occurring. So our idea is to try to bring them together. We tried that at Sinte Gleska way back in 1970 when we had these summer institutes. The summer institutes were to show how our culture was and how they can respect Maka. So we had these summer institutes for probably about 4 or 5 years, and realized it was not working because a lot of people came and learned this knowledge, especially sweat ceremonies, took them back east or west and start exploiting them, charging people for taking those ceremonies, and to a point where it really got bad. So we terminated that. The summer institutes realizing that we have to work with it in other ways. So this idea that Blackout had, when he was discussing how the earth is being destroyed, he said we're like on a boat. All the human race are on a boat, and it's going, somebody pokes a hole in it and it starts leaking. So you must go and help. And we realize that not a lot of people are helping. So we're beginning to see this boat being sunk. It's the only boat that we have. Just like it's the only earth that we have, and it's kind of going down, and we have to go and try to redo things. That's why I believe this Congress here is really important. It's expanding worldwide now, and that's really nice because we're able to show all of our experiences with that. And I hope that this will really expand out as we're involved in many more countries that are coming in. And because they're in the same boat, try to really revive their indigenous origins in what we do. So in the end, that's what we're trying to do here at Lakota Study, and it seemed like we're the only people that are battling that. But I really begin to realize that others are involved in it. So we need to come together even more as time goes. That's why I'm involved in this climate change. I'm on the committee, and I go and speak wherever the topic is on the climate change. And I begin to realize that it's helping somewhat. And then it's also giving me more reason to live, to be able to do research and expand on this. And one of the primary things that our people must do is begin to develop researching, because researching, it gives us some ideas of where we originate from. For instance, 3,600 years ago, our people were sitting at Peshla looking up at the stars and seeing the stars. There are 8 stars that you could draw a circle around, and that's the racetrack or wind cave. And then this embryo coming out of the wind cave to populate the earth, which is Tokahe, the first man coming out. And the embryo it looks like it's beginning to wiggle itself because the spine is kind of shaped, S-shaped. It's trying to get out of the 2 stars are the gateway. And so Tokahe, the first human, comes out there, and now it transformed to 2. One, the Pte Oyate, which is the white buffalo catamine is coming out there, whereas the humans are beginning to branch off that. And so we're closely related to that, the bison, Pte Oyate, that idea. And that wind cave is our primary source where we come out of. There are several of these. One up in the Custer State Park, there's 2 caves up there. One at Rosebud, to Gregory, where a cave was there where buffalo came out to give itself to us so we can gather meat and stuff. And one day, the hunter tried to kill the white buffalo that led him out there. So he went back in the cave and never to come out again. And the cave itself collapsed. So we have a lot of those stories that come and go, and we begin to look at them and expand to this idea that we're really close to nature. Also, doing our research, we found that wind cave, there's a spiritual connection to that, and 2 stars, gateway stars in this circle, which leads to what we call, I hesitate to say it, the tower that's in east, the Devil's Tower. I would try and change that to Matotipla. There's 2 primary stars that is the gateway in which the spirits come out and they're connected to the wind cave. So we're learning a lot about that as we're doing a lot of research and find that there's a connection between that and the beginning of our people coming out of the cave and then going to the area in the Black Hills, which is most sacred. And eventually our Ocheti Shakwe evolved off that. When our Ocheti Shakwe first started in the east, and that's another point we look at, another date that comes to us, is when the Iroquois League of Nations started. That's prior to 1492, around 1500. So our Council Fire started a little before that maybe. And it involved non-Lakota speakers as a whole. So the idea was to get all the people in that and establish a great peace among us, which WILD Lakota eventually came out of that. So as we gather more research, we begin to put these things together. And I'm looking at all the oral traditions of a racetrack idea. I've been through many hearings of the elders talking about that and putting that together and really like a puzzle, they're putting it together. So you begin to learn almost a complete story of our people coming out of the cave, and also how the Pteo Yati sacrificed themselves so that we may live with the coming of the red racetrack up in the sky. So we begin to realize the really importance of the buffalo. In the Black Hills, when you see the Black Hills area, it looks like the head of a buffalo, and also the heart of a buffalo. So the idea that it's the center of our world and heart of everything that we have there. So that idea, it rhymes perfectly how close we are to the Pte Oyate people. And the Pte Oyate people gave their lives so that we may live. And because of that idea, we brought our buffalo into our value, our culture system. Our mourning rites are a good example of when a buffalo loses its calf, it begins to go wild for 4 days. And after 4 days, it ends that. So our mourning rites are similar to that. And as a buffalo gather to fend off any enemy or predators that come to it, they form a circle and put their calves in the center, and then the females, and protecting them. So that's how our tribal governments were based on that. And then the generosity of giving itself to us is also one of the values that we have. So the buffalo has a long standing with us. And that's becomes, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's a problem, because we can't take that out of our system. Therefore, we're stuck with it. The day will come when we replace that with other value systems, and then we'll go on with a better life. So in a way, the buffalo has really given us a lot, yet we depend on it too much. Imagine when our people were hunting the buffalo in great numbers, maybe 40 million. No one realized that the buffalo would disappear in a decade. It's hard to believe that because of the buffalo so much, our people depended on it. It was a lifestyle that we chose, no other lifestyle but that. But when the buffalo system, collapsed, economy collapsed, then we went with it. So we have to figure ways of how to replace some of those values in there, and then finally let go the past completely, so we'll be able to go forward in the economic system to the future. So that's how much the bison has been related to us, how we cherish it. But the day will come that we'll have to make these decisions as time goes, you know. So again, as you look at the more resource that we have there, we're able to look at the value of it. So the 7 Council Fire matches that, because it's a group involvement. When I was drafted, I was going to Regis College in Denver. I was drafted in that Vietnam era war. And I was really depressed because I didn't want to go to Vietnam where we'll be fighting Aboriginal people there. My brother went though. He didn't seem to mind. He went there, and eventually my other brother was on a docket. So I had 4 brothers. 4 of us were on a docket. We're all joined forces, and one young one was left behind. So my mother and father were really distressed because we went in. And eventually my brother went to Cameron Bay. He came back with Agent Orange. And about 15 years ago, he died of that. So that took a terrible toll in our lives. You know. For a while that year when I got out, I was just absorbed in alcoholism. And eventually I began to realize that I had to change that lifestyle. And after that, I never drank again, going out and achieve much in the system. So we learn from these things, but it takes a hard toll on us. And 3 years ago, my wife died when that COVID came, and I lost a son, 2 grandchildren, and some nephews in that. So I brought all the families to live in my household. I had about 15 of them in that. But again, to realize that your strength is in your group. When my wife died, the entire community of St. Francis paid homage to her. She worked at St. Francis for about 45 years, and eventually she died, and the whole community came and mourned with me. You know, wherever I went, people would shake my hand, and I began to realize that this helped me a lot as a group. You know, so, and that's what our council fires are. We all support each other in what we do. And the idea of Lakota, that is strong in our system where we're sharing things. And you share as a group, you become stronger. You know, Washichu call this communism, which is much different. It's really not really what we're trying to figure that out, because we're trying to work as a group, you know, and then they come with this term, which is a totally different idea. And that's still being used today, as the Democrats are trying to go over and uplift our social systems, and the opposing groups call it communism, and that really it kills our whole idea. But those are two separate ideas there that we're beginning to now understand. So in the world that's before us, a lot of that's happening, and we must go out and help restore a lot of these things to non-Indians to show our culture how it evolved to a point where it's almost a perfect system that we had until the acculturation system came in, and we're losing a lot of our cultural practices. So our culture's down to 20%. There's a whole group in the middle part of that, about 40% of that, 50, 60% of that still have some of the cultural values in it, whereas maybe 10 or 20% lost it completely. So we're trying to work to bring those together as we go. And to me, my window of dealing with that is closing. And I'm trying my best to spread their knowledge as best as I can, so we'll be able to realize a lot of these things. So again, all of you out there that you're doing well, coming here and going out, you can promote more gathering and discussion of a lot of these issues that we're beginning to deal with. So in the world that we're living in, it's really closing in fast. They say that roughly 70% of the world is occupied by human beings, 8 billion. And they're shutting off the other life forms, which is down to 30%, which used to be the opposite. So when I was looking at that, it's really terrifying to me that we're losing a lot of that. And somehow we have to begin to fight that and begin to do the other way around, make it back to what it used to be. And that's where this Ujimaka concept comes in. And this idea of that, we have to go out, maybe preach to the non-Indian world that that is a better life when you're coming close spiritually with Ujimaka and begin to restore the values that we have lost so long ago, and that we're trying to put it together. So again, one thing I would say that we need a lot of research in that to be able to fix the things that are happening. That climate change, we can have the impact on it because humans are sometimes destroying what we have. Right now, the ground level water is disappearing, especially at Rosewood, where these pivot irrigation systems are beginning to close down our wells because of the way it's destroying our health and all that. So we're trying to be able to use another system rather than that. So as we deplete the ground water because of the melting, complete melting of glaciations, then we're in trouble. But one thing that the science found that in the core of the earth is the H2O. Those components are separate, but once you put them together, you can have an ocean, pure ocean that'll come out. And I know they'll find a way if we put all of our power aside and go for trying to restore a lot of those values. But we strongly believe that this earth, Ujimaka, or the turtle world or nation, it survives because of the soul and spirit of Ujimaka. It's strong. The core of that is the heart. And that core of the heart is, at one time, the Black Hills is shifting tectonic plates. It used to be the center. Now it's moved away from it. And so if you take a stylus and spin the world, that stylus will point to the North Star, the heart of everything that is the Thunderbird. So again, a lot of these things that I'm doing research and teaching some classes on it, I find it's really challenging to try to put all the resources together and be able to maintain a steady knowledge into the system. Today, the students are, more inquisitive. So oftentimes I have to stay one step ahead of them, doing a lot of the stuff that are going on. They ask questions that I cannot answer at that time, but later on as I come together, do more research, begin to find the answer to a lot of them. And I do that by doing a lot of things, meeting with people here, listening to what they're saying. And that helps a lot. And when I went to Germany, I thought it was really a terrible experience. I didn't go to Vietnam because when I was completing my basic training, the officials came down to recruit where the special areas we were going into. So I asked the recruiter, how can I stay out of Vietnam? So he said, you got a good chance because you got 2 years of college degree. In that if you go to military intelligence and be certified in the security system, then they won't send you to Vietnam. So that's what I did. I signed up for military intelligence. And it's true that you can't send people who hold the secrets of our country, you can't send them to danger zones in the area. So I kind of got out of that when I went to a military intelligence school. And also I benefited because I was working with I was an order battle specialist. I worked with maps, putting together maps and then like a mosaic and put it on a gigantic wall and then the list of where the Soviet units are. At one time they gave us an assignment to find out, and we used the railroads, which are all standard, that the Soviets had put together a tank that can launch nuclear weapons. It was built on the standard of the shape of the wheels. So as we ran photos of them, that is what I was involved in, looking at the pictures and looking at putting them together. That's part of that. And so I learned how to develop maps. And that benefited me when I was teaching Lakota studies. I was able to put together a mapping of our possessions and other stuff. I learned a lot going to Germany too. I learned about peoples, how they relate. France, the French and the Italians, they like to hug. And then the males, they hug and they kiss. And that's one thing, I was shocked when they saw my name tag, Douville, they came up to me, that Frenchman, and hugged me and kissed me. I was completely shocked, and I found out that happened. That happens. In our Lakota world, we never let anybody get within our sphere of influence here, except my wife and my children and others. And then you don't look at them directly in the eye. And that's their strength, looking at you eye and begin to, so you kind of melt when they look at you and you try to, so those things I learned, different worlds, And I was prepared when I was in a treaty council, I found out the Italians were coming over. So the door they were to come to, I stood way in the back. And as they came in, they started hugging and doing their thing, So sometimes the treaty council kind of stunned them, but I learned, that. But I also learned that once you understand cultures, then you can get along. If you misunderstand, then you get in trouble. And also, I found when I was going to Regis College, he asked me to give a speech. Each of us had to give a speech. So I said, I don't know how. Well, just stand up there and answer the questions. So I did that. I went in the class, and first thing one of them said, how do you say please? It's in our system, but we don't use those because we're related. Our Jewish wives are related, so you don't have to say please. You share things, So and I began to realize that those are diplomatic terms, so you won't offend yourself. And a lot of them we don't have, but we can make equivalents of them. One thing I couldn't figure out is how to say girlfriend, because it always turns out to your wife, And so one day I was walking across campus, and one lady came back, how cold, she said. So apparently she didn't learn that in class, that the women don't say that. They have a different term for it. So a lot of these things, you have to understand that world that we're living in and be able to react to those. So I did just fine when I was in Germany. I learned about world cultures. I learned about how histories are distorted, the way they teach us. So I had those when I came back, and those are good values that I learned. And I learned to speak a little bit German, because when you go out there and go to the stores, the prices are outstanding. You have to haggle. And once you know you're American, then they'll charge you a lot or less. So I learned how to count. So I learned that Germans also had high and low, that some had good or low. So just like when Kennedy, I think he used the wrong term when he said, Ich bin ein Berliner, I am a Berliner. He was in the area that spoke the good old Ich bin ein Berliner is another. So they also have dialects there, learning that. And German is like English, because that's where English originated. So I learned a lot. It helped me when I came back to teach in Lakota studies, using the world experience and realizing that's a really important element of how we get along. So again, if you're in a bad world, try to make the best of it. Just like going to St. Francis, we're forbidden to talk our language. We're forbidden to go together as a group, and then you're punished physically for those. But we survived. We got together sometimes, and my folks said, just get through it, graduate, and go back, and you can redo the things that you lost. So oftentimes that helped me. I survived 12 years there. And when I came out of St. Francis, it was the same thing in the military, the same deal. Because the Jesuits were, most of them went to the service and didn't want to go to the wars that were fought. And they taught at St. Francis, and they used the West Point discipline system to give you demerits. When you made your bed, you threw a dime on it and you caught it. Things like that. They'll say. So when I went into the Army, our drill sergeant replaced our Jesuit scholastics. So the only thing that was different is that in the Army you cussed, whereas the Jesuits didn't cuss. So that's the only difference. But going into the Army, I really progressed and was made a squad leader because I learned the drills and I really learned how to shoot. I used to go hunting. So I did well in the service, except that with that stereotype is that if something goes wrong, say bring the Indian, he'll finish it. They dropped us in a zone that was in nighttime, and we had to get our way back. So they all came to me, you're an Indian, you should lead us. But I was just as dark as they were. So whenever something happens, they call the tribal members. By the way, they call us all chiefs. And I didn't like it because I was not a chief, but right away they said the chief can do it. So in hand-to-hand combat, they really demonstrated. They brought me up, and so things like that. I endured a lot of that. Again, like my folks say, like coaches say, you endure those, and it makes you stronger, and you can develop as much as you can. So those hardships I faced at St. Francis helped me in the Army, and what helped me in the Army is learning worldviews and coming back and using those to teach our people. So in a way, you make a bad situation better by learning. So that one year when I got out, I drank heavily, and my mother and father came and said, didn't you learn anything? They kept talking to me. Eventually, I began to realize that I could use those things I endured to my advantage. It made me a better man as time went, So eventually, gave up drinking. I didn't smoke, and it's helpful because today I'm alive. I'm 81 years old, and I still think I'm 38. But those times that I experienced. I began to use them and be able to teach what I learned through these tough times, and what the hardships made me stronger in the will to carry on what I do. So again, again, as I look at our culture, that's where our culture is. You know, our culture is it puts its value on hardships that makes us stronger. In when I make the other presentation, I'll tell you about the hand constellation. In the hand constellation, we think it was 3,600 years ago, the Sundance, in which a chief that was there wanted to get things and not put back things. He was a harsh dictator. And eventually the spirit will send down the thunder beings to hack off his arm and take it up in the spiritual world. So when he lost his arm, then he began to realize that he had to get it back somehow. So he put his daughter on. Anybody gets my arm back, you will have my daughter in marriage. So Falling Star took up the challenge and eventually brought the arm back in the hand. So on one condition, he has to start doing sacrifices. So the Sundance began from there. He began to realize that hardships are needed to make us stronger and to be able to respect our lifestyle and all that. So the chief allowed the Sundance to occur. So the hand constellation appears in the sky so often. As you look at it, it reminds you of the hardships that we have to go through and not go to the easy way and begin to develop those hardships. So the Sundance itself is a way of making us strong. Going to all our leaders have to go through it. When I was looking at the qualification of leaders, they all have to have gone through the ceremonies to show that they can endure the ceremonies and also show how they can develop resources. So, like when I had a giveaway for naming my grandchildren, my children, I had to feed the people in St. Francis, about 400 of them in the area where our community does their Sundances. I had a name given theirs, and I spent maybe 2 or 3 pickup loads of goods with the help of my other relatives. And I was, are we all ready? Okay, I guess I don't have my watch, so we'll run out of time, and I'll probably talk more about this next time we meet. So everybody, Pilamaya.